on another level, you're perfect and life is perfect. And this moment is unbelievably beautiful and blissful.
Yeah.
And this is the more pleasure route, the bliss, you know? And if you can hold those two together, if you can continue to learn lessons and improve while also being firmly rooted in the present moment and open to the abundance that is in front of you, this is when healing becomes easy and pleasure becomes commonplace.
Coach Phil, I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Yeah.
So maybe you could start, Phil, by sharing a little bit about yourself and why you do what you do.
Why I do what I do? That's a beautiful question. So my name is Phil, and I'm a certified life coach. I've been helping people prepare and process and integrate plant experiences for about the last 3 years. And my certification, so my credentials and my training has mostly been focused on the basics of coaching. So mind management, showing people how their thoughts are creating their reality and empowering them to develop a mindset that better serves them. And also emotional release. So helping them not only on an intentional level, welcome and let go of the energy that's present, but also like doing the deep work of going beyond the mind into the physical body, beyond the material into the emotional, into the energetic, and actually connecting to energies inside of them, opening up and allowing them to release. So those are the fundamentals of what I do. What I offer is also much broader than that, and it's been informed by my experience here on this beautiful spiritual playground of Kopangan, trying all sorts of different modalities and doing my best to integrate that into a holistic approach to coaching. So why do I do what I do? What it comes down to is peace has always been a theme for me. Healing and finding peace and creating communities that are open-hearted and calm, okay on a fundamental level. That's always been my passion. And in the past, I looked to foster that sort of space and community looking externally. So I was actually accepted into a grad program focused on global peace building and conflict resolution. And then I met a couple of coaches, quite a few actually, who helped me see that so much of my desire for peace on the outside came from the desire for peace on the inside.
Beautiful.
And until I had done my work of cleaning my own house, I didn't really have much business telling other people how to clean up. So I really believe in this work, coming from the inside out. And that's what I hope to do for everybody I work with. Yeah.
I love that. And, you're such a humble man. You said, the basics. But actually, I think most of us have not ever been taught the basics, right? Most of us have never been taught tools for mind management. Most of us have never been taught tools for emotional management. Thoughts and emotions generally govern our experience, but we don't actually consciously have that much in the way of experience managing ourselves at that level. It's just thoughts and emotions arise as we step through life. So, I know that you and I share obviously some background in management and strategy consulting. So, I think for those, for that type of profile, those busy people, right? There's so many people in this world who identify as busy. And with that comes the feeling of perhaps overwhelmed, perhaps not feeling aligned to their path, perhaps feeling frustration, existential angst. There's a lot of change in the world at the moment. And a lot of people are feeling, perhaps this absence of peace, inner peace. And so help me kind of connect those dots between how does the mental and emotional work help us really ground into that feeling of inner peace? What has been your experience with that? And what has been your experience with that, with also the people that you serve?
Yeah. I really appreciate you zooming in on that, because as much as thought and emotional work is the basics, it is so profound. It is so profound, the not only the results, but also the in the moment experience of doing this work. So when I talk about mind management, this is based on the fundamental concept that the way you feel, the way you show up, and the results in the life that you create isn't a function of the circumstances that you face. It is a result of the thought that you had about that circumstance. And when you
Beautifully said.
really, thank you. Yeah.
Say say that again, because this is so fundamental. This, what you've just said, represents the collective societal inversion that working with plant medicine, working with coaches, self-improvement, self-development, once people make that binary switch in understanding, what becomes available in life is unbelievable, right? I think you and I have both had this shift in understanding. So can you say that again so that we could just really anchor around that point?
Yeah, yeah. And this is the fundamental shift from victimhood to empowerment. So how you feel, how you respond, and the results and the life that you create is a function of your mindset. It's a function of your thoughts and not of the circumstances that you're facing. So another way to say that is there's no such thing as a hard day, a stressful situation, an annoying person. If it felt hard for you, wasn't the day, it was your thinking that day. If that person annoys you, it's not the person, it's your thoughts about that person. So your entire experience of reality is in your hands. It's magic.
It is. It's so humbling and yet empowering at the same time, right? And you know that I live with my mom, and she will often declare things like, "Oh God, I'm so tired today," and I always say, "Mom, every single trillion cells in your body is listening to what you're saying, and they're responding to that. And now you're having the experience of being tired. You're even more tired than yesterday because yesterday you also said the same thing." And so, there's this shift where I believe that it's the mind that's creating the entirety of the experience. And for me, I came from a pretty atheistic background. I didn't believe in spirituality or anything of that nature. And in fact, my parents were quite spiritual. And so when I came to understand how much of my reality I was in fact creating, it just came as such a shock. Tell me a little bit about, some of the clients that you've helped make that shift, and what's helped them specifically be able to make that shift. Because I think, for a lot of people who might be listening to this, there's some part of them that may resonate with this potentiality, but they don't feel like it's accessible. So maybe you could share a few examples of what you've seen, or perhaps your own experience.
Yeah. And so, this concept that you're creating your own reality can be understood on a quantum level or on a spiritual level.
Yeah.
And so this is, for example, you hear people saying, you're manifesting with every word you say,
Yeah.
And like you said, all the trillion cells in your body, trillions of cells in your body are listening to every word you say, And so, and then there's the, it's like thoughts are spells, they're like, that's why we call it spelling, So that exists, and you see so much of this in the law of attraction. And I love what you said. There's often a gap between that understanding and the ability to apply it in your life and to really see how you're creating your reality. And so this is what I think is the beauty of coaching work. So when I'm working with a client, I don't just tell them they're creating their reality. We use a very discrete and simple framework that shows them how they are creating their reality. And
I like that.
And so it's like every result that you have in your life, everything that you've created, we map it out and we show how it was the thought that created it. And that opens up the door for us to create a new result based on a new thought. And so it's a really practical process, actually. And so this is what I see with a lot of clients. Let me do my best to see if I can find an example. I had somebody I was talking to yesterday who, for a long time, had a lot of criticism for, especially his brother, for making him feel stupid, for making him feel less than, insecure, that sort of thing. And he had this beautiful realization that his brother didn't make him feel anything. His brother said words and made faces. And it was his response to those words and faces that made him feel that way. And then with that understanding, he was able to envision a relationship with his brother that wasn't resistance and defensiveness, and more, wow, this person is showing me myself. This person is a mirror. This person is a gift. It's like an angel in my life, helping me to uncover the places where I haven't fully accepted myself, you know? And so this, thank you. Yeah. So this is where we weave from the very practical into the very profound. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? There's so many things that I want to say right now, but I wanted to go all the way up and speak about oneness actually for a second, because, often on this, in relation to this work, you will often hear people say things like, oh, it's all one. But there's a difference between going on a plant medicine retreat and having this experience where you go way up into a high vibrational state and you can see that everything in the universe is one and it's all interconnected and it's all just one big magical dance. And then actually embodying that and living that and being able to see that your brother is there to show you very specific things about yourself, and that it's not coincidence that this is your brother or this is your sister, or these are your parents, or this is your wife. It's there's magic happening in a very deep way. And so I love it when I hear stories like that, where people have had that revelation of like, oh, there's really magic here to be created, to be weaved together. And because I think it provides that opening to be able to engage with life as a continuous learning process, as opposed to something that is to be, just kind of navigated through, so to speak.
Yes. And so there's one point I want to just add to this, because I think it's a beautiful time to do it. This is for me the balance and the fundamental paradox in coaching and self-development work, is that on one level, life is a set of lessons and opportunities for self-purification and evolution. This is the healing route, in a sense. On another level, you're perfect and life is perfect, and this moment is unbelievably beautiful and blissful.
Yes.
And this is the more pleasure route, the bliss, And if you can hold those two together, if you can continue to learn lessons and improve while also being firmly rooted in the present moment and open to the abundance that is in front of you, this is when healing becomes easy and pleasure becomes commonplace.
I like that because, I think there's something I shared with you previously that speaks about our natural inclination to turn everything in life into a problem that requires a solution. And we've done that. I think it's dangerous, actually, that to some degree, there's a big push around mental health, which is turning human beings into a problem to be solved. And, of course, we want everyone to be in good mental health, but people spending lots of time talking about how everything's not good in their life and how it should be better actually furthers the problem in many cases, rather than them developing a sense of self-acceptance and a sense of empowerment to be able to move from where they are into, of course, accepting, yes, what is, but then also being excited about the future and the positive future and how that's going to be so much more expansive and joyful and fun and loving and all of those things that we all want, because we're all just human beings at the end of the day. And so I'd be curious how you see that dynamic playing out, and what role, if any, you play in relation to, people who are wanting to solve themselves like a problem versus, trying to find that joy and connect with the present moment.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and acceptance being the first step is something that you'll hear a lot. And it can be a tough concept to wrap your head around because the mind wants to come in and say, but if I accept it, why would I change it? You know, if you want me to just accept things as they are, fine. I don't need a coach.
Yeah.
So, it deserves a little bit of elaboration. So one thing I'll say on that is there's a story I heard once, and you feel free to fact check me on this, but I heard a story about Kobe Bryant. And when he first started playing basketball, either he had a tough day or he just wasn't that good. And his dad told him, you would expect his dad to be like a hard dude, His dad told him, I love you unconditionally, whether you're good at basketball or not. It doesn't really matter to me how well you play.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing that story as well. And it's inspiring, because it sets a different foundation for life. And the reality is that we as a species have evolved to respond to fear. The research very clearly shows that you will do twice as much to avoid losing $10 as you will to gain $10, right? So it's very deeply rooted in our psychology to come from the perspective of fear. And so, what you're pointing at is this other foundation. And I think it's, I'm glad you raised this because I was about to ask you a question, which is, we are two people who spent most of our early careers in very mind-oriented, professions. And that's where most of the world is. It's in logic, it's in rationality, and it's in thinking and structure and trying to decide what's right and what's wrong. And that's a source of division. Obviously, it doesn't matter whether it's between, left and right, whether it's between different racial groups, different belief systems, different ways of looking at gender. The list just grows and grows in terms of the ways that people want to identify and divide themselves. Now, I think this work really represents a shift in understanding and moving from the thinking mind into more the intuitive heart. And I'd love to hear some of your perspectives on that.
Yeah, the shift from the mind into the heart. And it's not away necessarily completely from the mind. It is that the mind is not used as a tool to solve your emotional imbalances and problems. It is a tool that is used by the heart when useful, when necessary. So you are in love, and then coffee needs to be made. And so maybe you get to a place where you do that without even thinking. Maybe if it's your first time, you still need to use the mind to figure out, okay, then I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this, and the coffee gets made. So the mind is a tool. You can say problem-solving tool. You can also say a goal achievement tool, that's used so it doesn't disappear. It just loses its role as the master and becomes more the servant.
And I think that's just it. I grew up as someone who was entirely identified with their own mind. In school, we were rewarded for it. We were actually elevated for the strength of mind that we had, right? Did we remember how to do the exercises? Did we get good test scores? So it's really this process whereby we, the right word is escaping me, but it's this process by which we entrench this belief system that we are our minds. Michael Singer has this really beautiful piece where he talks about this red card that represents our thoughts and our emotions. He says there's this whole rainbow of cards that represents the gamut of the human experience. And he says 99% of people on this planet, they only are ever looking at the red card and they never see anything else. They don't see all of these other dimensions that do exist and that we can access and that don't require plant medicine. Certainly, plant medicine can play a significant role in helping us open the doorway to these other dimensions and to these other states of being. But ultimately, what I come back to is nothing is better than having an open heart, a calm nervous system, and a clear conscience. You just can't beat it. There's, no amount of no number of Ferraris, no number of, girls chasing after you, no number of career accolades. You could go forever. But if you don't have a calm nervous system, an open heart, and a clear mind, you are missing the absolute gold of the human experience.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and maybe we can get into a little bit what we're actually talking about with an open heart. Because I absolutely agree. And so with plants and with the world of the psychonaut and the, dimensional traveler, and also the spiritual, bypasser, a spiritual explorer, we can get into this and very attractive ambition of exploring new dimensions, talking to my ancestors, and all these things, which are exciting and fun, and go for it. Fundamentally, though, what we're talking about isn't living a life that's away from the present reality. We're talking about feeling good inside this body. We're talking about feeling love in your heart. We're talking about feeling a little bit of peace up here and a little bit of calmness, so that you can think about what you want to think about, so that you can start to move in the direction of whatever you want, you know? So I love the way you brought that down and said, like, it's just about feeling peace and love and joy in your life. And that's fundamentally what the goal is of an embodied experience. So yeah. Thank you for bringing us down to the nervous system and the emotional reality of it. So what does it mean to open the heart and to go from the mind into the heart? So there are probably thousands of ways that you can answer this. The most fundamental is that you feel love. Opening your heart is feeling love. And love has many words associated with it. Is it limerence? Is it falling in love like a lover? Is it the love you feel for your parents? Is it unconditional positive regard? There's so many words and so many ways we can go with it. But I think we all know fundamentally what it feels like when there's love in our heart. There is warmth. There is maybe a tingling or a glowing sensation. There is a calm, settled peacefulness to it. There's the sense that everything is okay. There is an appreciation of beauty. When you think, oh my God, it's all just so beautiful. How does that feel? When you see when you see a newborn baby, what does that evoke in you? And don't answer that with the mind.
Yeah.
Don't put a sentence on it. Come into the body. Remember the embodied experience of that. And you'll get much closer to what it means to open your heart. It's just feeling love.
Yeah. And what you've said there also, I feel like there's so much magic that exists in this technology that we are. We are driving already a multi-dimensional Ferrari. Any technology that we are creating in the outside world in terms of robots or artificial intelligence, any of that, it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of what we already are. We are the most sensitive instrument in this universe, as far as we know. And what we can do with this thing when it's properly calibrated is very exciting. The way that I look at this work one lens through which I look at this work is through genetics. And that, Phil represents a complete being that has very specific magic that is to be channeled through that being by virtue of its essence, by virtue of its nature. And so when we talk about opening our heart, it's a return to our natural essence and our natural being. And then the thing that we are will begin to express itself naturally. And that's going to lead to inspiration. That's going to lead to motivation. That's going to lead to success. That's going to lead to abundance and a joyous life. And I think, again, it's, we all believe that if we do the right thing on the outside, then we will reach this place. There's some point in the future at which things will be okay, at which we will be enough. But it's just fundamentally not the case. Like you said before, we are already perfect. It's just that sometimes there's an opportunity to further express what we already are. And that's, the economic system that we're in sometimes actually is what we feel is keeping us actually from being able to express ourselves. So I wonder if there's anything in there that you would, share with people in terms of, okay, yes, I'd like more time to work on myself, to be able to express myself and become who I really am. But at the same time, I've got a wife and kids and, a job and, where do I start?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where I want to start with that is, for me, you've zeroed in on what I think is another one of the big, big, big shifts when we talk about moving from the mind into the heart. The mind is a problem-solving machine, and it exists, it thrives on problems. And most of us go our whole lives trying to get there. Once I this, then I will that. I'm not enough yet. I can't be happy yet, and so we spend our whole lives chasing, wanting, and this is in Buddhism, the root of suffering is wanting, unsatisfactoriness, craving, desire, right? So it would follow then that the end of suffering is the end of desire. and this is it, my first or my one of my most profound plant medicine experiences gave me this insight that I'd spent my whole life trying to get there. And then I had the realization, wow, I'm already here. And then I looked around and there was a real sense of completion and culmination and then celebration,
Yeah.
And so that's available to you here and now. Are you willing to let go of all of the beliefs that detract from the completeness of the moment? Are you willing to act as if this were it?
Yeah. If you've arrived and really embody that. I love that.
Yeah. And are you willing to, rather than focus on the problem, are you willing to be present with the beauty of the moment? Lovingness is a simple practice. Practice gratitude, practice loving kindness, practice compassion, admire the beauty in the moment. You can do this here and now.
You can do this. I like that. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what you generally guide people through over the course of your program to help them really prepare for a plant medicine experience. As you said before, process the experience itself and ultimately integrate that to improve quality of life.
Yes. Yeah. So fundamentally, as much as all is well here and now, and all can be loved here and now, and you can make peace even with the war that's going on inside you in your body, mind, and spirit, right? You can also end that war. One thought at a time, one blockage at a time. And I love what you said before about how the body is an instrument, or we are an instrument. I also like to think of it as we are the temple. And you can worship and you can celebrate in a rundown temple. And there's beauty in that. No sense resisting it. Also, you can refurbish that temple, put in beautiful stained glass windows, and create an instrument that sings. And that's what the program is all about. So
Instrument that sings.
An instrument,
It's so interesting because there was something that I saw recently that as you started speaking, I got the intuition to go to it and look at it so that I would get the words right. And it relates very precisely to what you've just said, but I was looking for it before you said it. And it's a quote that actually comes from the late king in Thailand. And the quote is, "Our soul is for the benefit of mankind." And when I saw that and I took a photo of it, and it was up on a sign, and it struck me so deeply because to me what that represented what you just said, which is that there's this thing up here called your soul that is already perfect and has something very special to give to humanity. And that is being able to express that thing, being able to release all of the blockages, being able to synchronize with that thing that is your soul. And then to be able to bring that through is what is going to lead you to feel fulfilled. But doing that, now that's a challenge. So tell us more about how we can sink it.
Yeah, so I'll take you through the program. It's designed. It can be a 12-week program. It can also be much longer, because what I found is each of the units is less a course to be completed and more a door to be opened and explored for the rest of your life. These are such intricate and profound spaces to be explored. So it's organized into 10 units. And does it make sense for me to just talk about what each of the 10 units opens up and starts to explore?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah, so the first unit is coming back to the vision. And it's after your plant medicine journey, or as you're starting this journey, these are beautiful times to really decide what you want. Yeah. So, and there can be so much that comes up in resistance to creating a vision. And so the visioning is complemented with an introduction to this process of letting go, so that you can set a very clear North Star. And as you do that, what's going to happen is all of the blockages between you and that North Star are revealed. And then you can start the process of surrendering to those blockages and kind of tumbling to the top of the mountain. One way you might say that. So your vision is the first unit.
So for you and I think a word like surrender to the blockages makes a lot of sense. For some of the people that might be listening, I suspect they may struggle with that language. Can you decompose that for us a little bit?
Yeah. What you resist will persist. The art of release, of letting go, of transcending your problem is twofold. One, you set a clear intention that you don't want to be this way anymore. You don't want to have this anger. And this is the vision, The second part, paradoxically, is you let yourself feel that anger on the deepest, most profound and visceral level.
No.
You have trapped energy inside of you. It wants to come out, and the only way out is through. So knowing I don't want to feel this anger, now when the anger comes up, feel it fully. Don't believe it fully. Don't necessarily act on it fully, but allow the experience to be had. Allow the energy to be felt. Because if it's inside of you, it has to come through you in order to get out. So that's what surrendering is. It's a full acceptance of the experience and a full presence with it, without fully believing it.
That's beautifully said. And I think that's, for many people, I think that's such an important component, is to allow ourselves to feel our feelings. Because often those emotions are uncomfortable, right? So we leave the room, we go to the fridge, we turn on Netflix. We all have coping mechanisms to help us avoid feeling those uncomfortable feelings. So I really love the way you articulated that. So that's really module 1. Is there anything else for module 1 that you'd like to highlight?
No, that's the gist of it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And so then the second unit is about consciousness and the art of radical responsibility. It's about using this practical framework that we talked about before to not only open to the possibility that I'm creating my reality, but really exploring with curiosity how. So this is the mental shift from victimhood into empowerment.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who would not naturally identify with a word like victimhood.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of successful people who would not identify with the word victimhood. So I'm going to push you a little bit and say, give an example of, say, a successful client that you've had where there was still actually victim pattern behaviors that were manifesting and that they were not conscious of. Because I think this is actually, yes, there are people who are really stuck in victim patterns, but I think the vast majority of the world would not identify as a victim, and yet they would be playing what you and I would know as victim patterns out in their daily lives.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to say, the word victim is never used as a way to blame or belittle.
Mm.
It is so ingrained in our society, and it's so deeply unconscious in so many ways that, you know, there's nothing wrong with being unconsciously in a victim pattern. And I also want to honor how deeply humbling this process is and how much humility is required to take this path. This is not for everybody. It's really not. So I have so much respect for the people who walk this path.
Yeah.
A concrete example of how somebody who is successful and thriving might be in a victim pattern. I can't stand it when my wife does that. It's so annoying.
So common, right? Almost everyone on this planet says something like that, where they externalize the problem. And this is, again, coming back to this opportunity that exists. It's like, no, the only reason you're angry is because of something that exists within you. Some childhood trauma is, usually there's some linkage to some childhood trauma there, some trigger that is being scratched at as an opportunity, as a window, to be able to get to that thing and to finally transcend it. Yeah. But only if you are able to abstract from the intensity of the experience itself and to become the awareness watching the human thing just kind of acting out its stuck energy, its anger, its frustration, its childhood trauma.
Yep. Yeah, and I love the shift from the gap to the gain here. You're the victim is much less inspiring than, could you imagine being in that same situation and it not affecting you? Could you imagine, like, who's the person who most inspires you in life? And could you imagine showing up like them in this moment?
Yeah.
And it's possible, and I can get you there. Well, I can't get you there. I can show you how to get there.
Yeah. That's when you put the small text at the bottom, right? It's like, conditions may vary, and then it turns a little bit whiter.
Yeah. By the way, can you hear the background noise here?
No.
Okay, great. So yeah, so this is radical responsibility. This is the second unit. It's mindset.
Yeah.
Work. Shall I just go through the units?
Yeah, let's keep rattling through. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, so the third unit is about groundedness and the art of calming down. So much of this path can be understood from the perspective of your nervous system. Something happens, your nervous system goes into fight or flight. And for many of us, especially for successful people, not only have we used our fight or flight response to get to where we are, we also can't envision a reality where we feel safe and good in our bodies and are still thriving and successful and creating and providing on the levels that we expect from ourselves.
We've never had the experience. I speak for myself. The best analogy that I could come up with is that my entire life, my ear was blocked. My ears were blocked, like coming off of a plane. My entire life, my ears were blocked. And then finally, the day that my nervous system hit equilibrium with reality, it was just like my ears became unblocked for the first time. And I could experience just being comfortable within reality, within myself. And it was just like this profound moment of we as a species have been disconnected from nature to such a degree that our system, like you said, is dysregulated. And so the miracle of returning to a regulated system cannot be overemphasized. And as you said, most of us have never experienced that. And that is, to me, that's, I think, one of the, it's beyond amazing that we've managed to dysregulate ourselves to such a degree.
Yeah. And you deserve to feel okay. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to feel comfort. You deserve to feel pleasure in this body. And it's possible. And when you feel that way, it makes you much better at what you do. That's a leap of faith that you got to be willing to take. You got to be willing to try feeling okay, and doing the work. So, but just, it's a beautiful um, possibility that's, for me, beyond worth exploring, at least.
Yeah. So groundedness and calming the system.
Yeah.
What about my floral?
So this is softness and the art of release. This is learning how to connect to your emotions
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to be kind to yourself.
Mm. Yeah, we're pretty harsh critics of number one, aren't we? There's stats that I've come across before that says basically 100% of our thoughts are egoic thoughts. I, me, my.
Yep.
95% of the thoughts are repetitive, the same thoughts, and 85% of them are negative. So we're thinking all the time about ourselves. I think the stats was between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts per day. So we're thinking all the time about ourselves only, the same things, and mostly bad things.
Yep. And doesn't have to be that way. This is a legacy of our ancestors from a time where we had to be negative in order to be safe, where we had to remember the bad in order to not die the next time, And it just doesn't serve us anymore. It's the mind skews negative, and with presence and with intention, we can create a more positive outlook, not only on the outside world, but also ourselves. And it can seem mushy and woo-woo to just love yourself, It can seem like that's not for me. I got work to do. I don't have time for this mushy stuff. So I just want to give one example of how being kind to yourself can impact a professional setting or how you show up in a professional setting. Let's say that there's a big project that you're collaborating with somebody on, and it's other people are not showing up, and you're getting frustrated because of that. So part of why you might be getting frustrated is that unconsciously you're putting your self-esteem and your enoughness on the line. You're making it dependent on the success of that project. I can only accept myself if I'm successful in this.
Right.
Transition from I accept myself already, and at the end of every day you say to yourself, hey, good job, man. I honor and appreciate the work you did today. All of a sudden you become so much less attached to the outcome. And when you're not attached to the outcome, you get to focus much more on the process. You get to be much more, focused, and that improves performance. So this is for everybody.
Yeah. And whether it's, one of the things that came to mind when you were speaking was that negativity. Often it comes from, the lack of tools that our parents had, actually. And so they would often use negativity to enforce certain behaviors in us and to dissuade us from certain behaviors. And so that, I think, plays a big role also in this, like, oh no, I shouldn't be this, I shouldn't be that, because that's how we were spoken to. And so that's how we speak to ourselves. And it's not because our parents didn't love us, and in some cases, obviously people have different childhood experiences, but even with the most loving parents, generally they didn't have the tool set that I think is now, much more pervasive and much more common knowledge, or growing, at least in the collective consciousness.
Yes, and this is the mechanism. We take the most painful, the most traumatizing, the most stressful experiences from our childhood, and we parent ourselves in that way. That's the default.
Yep.
To be the worst of the worst, parent to ourselves. That's the default.
Yeah. There's a great I know it's incredible, right? When you really understand that we've taken the worst and and that's the primary management tool that we're using for ourselves in many cases. There's this great interview between Gabor Mate and Tim Ferriss. You may have seen it, where Gabor Mate goes into an instance where Tim Ferriss gets frustrated, and he decomposes that and helps him see that his mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusions. from the source of his frustration. And when Tim sees that, he almost has like an emotional shutdown. He has to stop the interview basically from going deeper because it was so triggering for him. And he's obviously someone who's placed a lot of work on himself. And so just to see the speed at which someone who's attuned to what's actually going on in someone's mind, because this is not easy work. And this, one of the reasons I send my friends to you is that I know that you do this work well. And it's not easy. There's a lot of people out there who can help people speak about what's going on with their lives, but not necessarily make meaningful progress. The process of bringing that mirror closer and closer and closer until you actually see, oh my God, I'm really thinking poor things about myself all the time. It's really hard to see because it's so ingrained, it's so natural, and it's so there. Like you said before, there's no knowledge of another way. And so that, that bit, I think, and that's some of your magic, is to be able to do that in a way that is loving, that doesn't, that is a managed process, because, honestly, we're accessing trauma's deep stuff, through this work, and bringing stuff to the surface that is deeply uncomfortable, right? So how do you help people regulate through what is fun, at a basic level, a dysregulating experience?
Yeah. So this is why the units flow the way they do.
Oh, good thing I asked.
Before we go deep into painful experiences, before we connect to the visceral emotion, we learn how to ground ourselves. We learn how to breathe. We learn how to get out of our minds and feel the sensations around us. We learn how to physically feel ourselves grounded. Notice the weight of our feet on the ground and our seat. We learn how to relax and create comfort for ourselves, so that as much as we activate ourselves, we also deactivate and create safety again. And it is a step-by-step process. If you connect to the depth of your, trauma for 1 second, if you tap into that energy inside of you for 1 second, that's a day's work.
For sure. For sure.
So, and if you're able to connect to these painful experiences in your past and these stressful emotions from the knowledge that your well-doing is in your hands and that blaming will get you nowhere, that's when this connection becomes very healing. And a lot of the time, this healing work can get stuck because we get lost again. And my daddy did this. My sister did this. Yes, they did. And your healing is in your hands.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think now we're on module 5. We've got 10 modules.
Yeah. 10 units. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's pick up the pace a little bit.
Okay. Well, we'll speed it up. So unit 5 is about stepping into your power.
Now, what does that entail?
Yeah. Stepping into your power. Most basically, power is the power to create. And how do you create? Decide what you want and align your life to it.
That simple, huh?
Yeah. But it's, so many of us get lost in the uncertainty. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. I can't decide, Decide what you want. And then set the boundaries and make the sacrifices necessary to align your life to it. Especially after a plant medicine ceremony, you have these insights like, some people want to go vegan. Some people want to start a business. Some people want to start a relationship or end a relationship. Power is about aligning your life to what you want. And the core of that, the essence for me, is this quality of determination, the fire inside that rises to challenge, that steps up, And then since it's beautiful, you've got the watery quality of softness. I can hold myself, I can be kind to myself, and I can be fierce.
Yeah.
And if you want to make meaningful progress, you got to be able to say no to things. You got to be able to stand up for yourself. You got to be in your own power to protect your inner process and your inner journey. So that's what
Yeah.
power is.
Yeah. Not allowing yourself to be pulled off center by Dunkin' Donuts or, whatever it is.
Or people pleaser. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
So
unit 6.
power. Unit 6, love. This is the opening the heart. This is, and we also go through a process of healing relationships here. So I think we've said enough about that one already.
Yeah. We have. Good call. Good call. And
Yeah, freedom and authenticity. So if you get to a place where you know that you're already here, you're not acting from fear. You start acting from the heart.
Yeah.
You start allowing your actions to be inspired by inspiration and curiosity. And it's a natural unfolding of your true nature. There can be a few more roadblocks. And the biggest one is the should. How I should be, how my parents expect me to be, what I expect of myself as a partner, the sense of duty that I feel towards the world and what the world needs of people like me. It's about letting go of this sense of duty and trusting that who I already am is good.
Yeah. 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 It's a big one. It's a big one to really feel natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be yourself. Yeah. Unit 8, presence. This is kind of what you talked about before. Most of the time we're thinking of ourselves. Or what is it like to live a life where not everything is about you?
Yeah.
When you're able to relate to others on their terms, really be present with others and not lost in your own thoughts and desires. You become such a positive influence on the world, and for yourself, you get to actually experience life.
Yeah.
You get to actually enjoy the moment because you're not trying to do the moment.
Yes. Well said. That's beautifully said, because I feel like, a lot of people in the business world in particular they feel like they need to be the active ingredient all of the time or a lot of the time. Whereas true listening and true presence, they go hand in hand. And, so much of the magic is in the tonality of the voice and the energy, because it's really, when it comes down to it, we're exchanging energy in different ways. And so the tone of voice saying so much more, or the mannerisms of the person is saying so much more. And so when we're present, we're able to tap into not the information exchange, but the energetic exchange, which is a truer representation of what's going on.
That's it. And this is missed sometimes. Presence isn't just being in the physical world. It's not just, and sometimes if you read The Power of Now, for example, by Eckhart Tolle, you can get the sense that presence is just being in the physical world. Not that he's saying that, it's just how it's often interpreted.
Yes.
Presence is being there in the physical, in the energetic, present to how that person feels, how I'm feeling, the energetic dynamics that are playing out. In the mental world as well. How is this person thinking? Why are they thinking that way? What are they needing in this moment? And also in the more spiritual, you might say, like in the world of desires as well. So that's presence. It's being aware of the fullness of the moment in all of the worlds that we exist in at the same time. And I wanted to come back to another thing that you said. We feel like we have to be the active ingredient. And one thing I like to ask people is, what if life would do just fine without you?
I like it.
And then, what if you would do just fine without you?
Wow. Yeah, that's a big step. We need plans.
Yeah. That is an insight best achieved through support. Yeah, the supportive plan. Yeah, could you just watch yourself happen?
Yeah, the natural process. And that also, I think, leads to a point that you and I have discussed a few times in the past, which is about simultaneously, and we've spoken to this a little bit earlier, but simultaneously self-acceptance and self-improvement, and how those two things, can coexist in a really beautiful way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And this is a theory I have. I'm not sure that it's true, but you get to a place of when you transcend the self and when you're able to just watch you happen, that can be so liberating and so beautiful. Also, though, if you're just watching yourself play out old patterns, if you're just watching you watch Netflix, cool. It's a little bit like, worshiping in a rundown temple.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
transcending the self doesn't nullify the process of healing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It is process, right? So I like what you said at the beginning, before we stepped into the modules, that they're more about opening doorways, and it's not necessarily over the course of 12 weeks to try to achieve, tick the boxes, right?
Yeah.
It's about bringing awareness to these different aspects of self, and where we sit within our own level of self-understanding within each of these aspects.
Yeah. Yeah, and they complement each other.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's value in going through it all. And not
Well
sticking
said.
just in line for a year,
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I think that there's a quote that I can't remember where I gathered it from, but that these things begin to build on themselves very quickly, because life when it's completely expressing itself, what life wants is to completely express itself, right? And we just have these mental blockages, limiting belief systems, traumas, energetic blockages, physical blockages, whatever it is, bad diets, many things that are perhaps us in a full expression of life, being able to channel through us. And so as we begin to work with more of these aspects, I think there's a real cumulative and symbiotic effect between these different types of work, where they start to coalesce in very interesting ways and actually accelerate that awareness and that growth.
Yes. Yes. And this brings us really beautifully into the 9th unit, which is, I call it Lightness and the Art of Bliss. And the nice thing about the word lightness is, on one level, it means like not heavy. And so there's a quality of not taking life so seriously and not taking your healing so seriously, and having a sense of humor about all of this.
Yeah.
Which I think is very important. Lightness is important. Let me just catch myself there. Useful. And also starting to explore, starting to really explore what it is for life to be flowing through you. And a lot of people will call that the light. And when you do plants, it really allows you to feel that light moving through you. And it feels so good.
Yeah. Or you might have the experience of going in the other direction as well. Again, thinking of the small print.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So when the light moves through, it can also reveal and wash out a lot of darkness. This is the other part of lightness, is that it's not dark. And so absolutely, being present as light moves through you, it is also being present as darkness moves through you. You don't need to necessarily have a plant medicine experience to feel that lightness. You can get it through breath work. You start doing some connected breathing. After about 10 minutes, you start to feel the tingle.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of ways to bring in the light. Also, the light is moving through you constantly. So as you tune your instrument, as you do your work, it's just going to become more and more of a part of your experience. It is actually the quality of beingness. beingness is bliss. So in the Hindu tradition, it's called Satchit Ananda.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that being, go ahead.
You breezed over a very profound point there, right? Bliss, and I agree with that. And it's something I would have laughed at, 10 years ago. Really, I would have laughed at it. And we are human beings. We are not human doings, right? And so much of the world right now is just completely stuck in human doing and then disconnection. Actually, we go find food that's not in alignment with what our body actually wants. We watch Netflix, we play video games, all these different mechanisms to, doom scrolling on our phones, all of these things to really keep us from feeling what's actually going on. And when we allow that, then we can feel bliss. And you go, oh, this is really, some people believe that the purpose of the human experience is suffering. Okay, that's certainly one interpretation, but I think there's another set of feelings that are also eminently available to us, and maybe we should like to focus a little bit more on those ones.
Yeah, and I love the perspective. For example, if you read Conversations with God by, I think it's Neil Donald Walsh, that we live in a world of duality, and our systems, we develop these bodies that can suffer so that these bodies can experience the opposite of suffering.
Yeah, it's polarity.
All of the pain is there to create the possibility for pleasure. And bliss is there through both.
Yes.
So yeah, the suffering has meaning. Wow.
Absolutely. Which module was that? Was that
that was the 9th? That was the 9th, and then the 10th is the integration. And the heart of integration is embrace, and it's kind of exactly what we just talked about. Can you be there with the light and the dark? Can you feel good and bad at the same time? Can you be cosmic and empty, and at the same time be in this body and physical? Can you be not you and you at the same time? And what allows for all of these paradoxes to come together is the heart, is the presence of love, and the art of embracing this mutual embrace that is there at the center of all.
I love the term embrace, because I think often, as we spoke a little bit about before, I think often there's this sense of what is currently isn't right, as it relates to world events, or where we are in our relationship, or where we are in our career, or just how we feel, that it's not right. It should be different than it presently is, and of course it's not the case. If it should be, if it quote unquote should be different, then it would be, but it isn't. Yeah. So accepting, meeting reality, embracing reality as it is, has such tremendous power, because that is, to me, that's a doorway. It's a portal through which a very exciting process really begins, which is, this is okay.
Yes.
And better than that. It's actually, it's really, really good. It's magic. Like this whole thing, this reality that here we are on a Zoom call, the whole universe is just one big piece of magic that we get to experience. And the fact that many of us can't live that is just the greatest opportunity that mankind has.
Yes. And I really want to emphasize the central nature of the open heart, because so often I have seen this "it's all good" mentality drift into an aloofness. I just don't watch the news. I just am not in those spaces where there is still negativity. And this for me is what embrace is all about. It's not drifting off into the light. It is about, can you watch the news and keep your heart open? Can you be of service without attachment to outcome? Can you be there with people who are not okay and serve and be okay? And, when you talk about somebody like Mother Teresa, for example, she was able to go to the slum and transform energetically these places, and to really bring grace and healing into places that were so lacking. You think about Gandhi, for example, you just look at his face and you see a serenity while he was battling the most profound injustice.
Yeah.
This is what it is to really be integrated and balanced, and to be able to embrace, is to be all good and to still do your work in the world.
Yeah, that's full power. That's really full power, and I think, those two examples are interesting, because I think those two examples represent what we really are.
And
We're not really at the core of our being that excited about accumulating billions of dollars, about being famous, about being some icon of some sort. That's not really the full expression. The full expression is so at peace inside that there's nothing else to do but serve. There's nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and reading an interpretation once of the Diamond Sutra, that the greatest generosity is a generosity that's not conscious of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not even I'm serving. That's what's happening.
Yeah, right. Yes. I love that. I really love that. That's really beautiful. It's just what's happening, because you've become the awareness that is just naturally responding to the present conditions. And for some people, that will take them into the slums and doing work of that variety. For other people, that will take them potentially in a different direction. And that's okay too. It's just about being able to sync with the soul, as you said before.
Right. Creating a symphony. Yeah. Or building a business. Yeah. And as much as we talk about how hurt people, and how people who are suffering, if somebody is causing you suffering, it's because of the suffering that they're feeling inside, or it's a function of that. As much as that's true, healed people heal people.
Ooh. Amen to that. Healed people heal people. I've certainly seen that in the past few years in particular. I feel that quite a few of my friends and people in my professional networks, et cetera, they've done enough work on themselves that there's a real exponential effect. Every time you and I spend time together, I feel like I learn something, something that I can bring back into my life. And I think that process is, sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, but I do believe it's exponential in its effect to elevate mankind to a higher understanding, and to an embodied understanding of the fact that we are one. This is one organism. There's no version of the future whereby Phil is super rich and lives up on the hill, and Jonathan is down in the dumps, scrounging around. That's not a positive future for either of us. If you're up the hill, you're in fear trying to keep me down there, and I'm trying to get up there. And it's just, that's the current paradigm that we're stuck in. And we need to find a way to move towards collective abundance, and towards trusting one another, towards loving one another, and towards being, and allowing this amazing technology that we're developing, allowing it to help us be abundant rather than to try to control one another. And I feel like we will live through this transition. It's just such an exciting time to be alive.
Yes. Yeah. Could not agree more. Really amazing.
Any closing thoughts, Phil, in terms of your program and what energies you're bringing out into the world? What would you say to people who are looking for a shift, thinking about working with you? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, what I'd say is, like I said before, this is not for everyone. Yeah, this program requires time. It requires humility, and it's a thing. you know? It's not something you can just, brush aside for 30 minutes over the weekend.
Yeah.
It's something that you go into. Um, it's something you need to buy into, be open to the possibility that this can transform you. Of course, with with a willingness to be honest where it doesn't resonate, and I'm always looking to improve it, and I'm always learning from the feedback that I get. So again, there's a paradox there. Willingness to be a beginner, and also willingness to tell me where something can be improved. Um, so coming back, it is a commitment and an investment. And at the same time, I've seen time and time again that when people do this inner healing, it's just, your life can improve in ways that you can't even conceive of now here,
Hmm.
you know?
That's there's one thing that comes to mind, and this relates to working with plant medicine as well as, coaching programs like yours, is that what comes to me is that you can't unopen the box. And so it requires that people truly be ready to do the work, because we, like it or not, we all have stuff down there that 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 could benefit from some clearing, for lack of a better description. And so, yeah, I think it's, what you said is so true, which is we need to be ready, because you can't unopen the box. So making sure that, that time, that commitment, and that self-belief is there.
Yeah. So if you're ready, join us.
I love it. I love it. Well, Phil, I really enjoyed this conversation. We speak about these subjects so often, but it's nice to actually put some structure around it, and you have to dive deep into what you're doing and how you're doing it. So thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah, and really, really appreciate your heart and your insight as well. This has been so expansive. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful chat, man. Cool. Well, I guess we'll be hosting this in a few different places and sharing it out with our audience, certainly. And I look actually, during this conversation, I had the idea we should do the converse as well, and have another conversation.
Beautiful. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Peace, brother.
All right. Peace. Have a great day, John.